Hey there, how are you? And good afternoon. I'm looking forward to spending some time with you today on another webinar, specifically for participants going through Career 365. And these are simple steps that you can take to have your dream career. Brought to you by me, yours truly, Greg Weiss. I'm the lead coach at Career 365 and its founder, and I look forward to spending many times with you. I've got my trusted friend over here, my little bobblehead of moi, and having a little bit of fun there. We never know if we're going to bring him in into today's webinar or not. I've also got my new fandangled podcast microphone where I'm doing a lot more podcasting and where I'm able to make sure that I can talk quite comfortably to screen. Got a little bit of housework here. If I can just get all attendees just to give me a hi in the chat window, which I'm looking at there. I can see some responses, which is great. It means the sound is working. So nice to see you there and the like. And I've got natural light in here as well. So hopefully you'll be able to actually see some things. What I might do is actually turn off my camera and actually get into the main thing so that you can all learn without being distracted by the light and by me. So I'm going to turn me off at this particular point in time. So today, everybody, it's all about you, and it's all about the simple steps that you can take to have your dream career. And I want to be able to take you through a few things. I've brought up the word ikigai, or the ikigai model here, and you may have actually seen this before. Oh, just one thing before, so that I can go through today's presentation, rather than being too didactic, too one way. What I would like to be able to actually do is to encourage you, notwithstanding, just to warehouse your questions towards the end, and I promise you I'll get to those if you can stay in. But if you do want to actually ask me some questions and hop in, I'll either hold those and get to them to the end, or if they're really pressing, I'll get to them. But finding a fulfilling career that enriches your life is about much more than just chasing happiness, which is all too fleeting. But, in my view, a career should provide the opportunity for learning and development, give you a sense of autonomy, help you feel like you're winning and receiving recognition for that, helping you connect with those around you for a sense of relatedness, and much, much more. And what I've done is I've come up with a model, and I've got this ikigai, or actually, the correct pronunciation I understand is ikigai. So you may have heard of ikigai, which is a Japanese model for career choice. And ikigai aims for you to discover where your passions and talents intersect with all the things that the world needs. And you can see that on the right-hand side. And not only that, what the world needs, but it's also willing to pay for. And whilst I personally admire the ikigai model, I've actually found that very few of my coaching clients have been really able to struggle with, able to really apply the model. They struggle with implementing it, and especially at the point of determining what the world needs. And so after coaching many hundreds of people, I found that the model moved into what I called Slimpact. And I've got a comment there that from Julie saying I was right the first time. I'm not sure, but I'm glad to learn. I'll defer to some Japanese experts, but it's either tomato or ikigai or ikigai. But back on track here, it's to do with, instead of having the ikigai model, which is powerful, but where I struggle is the one in the, and I find that people struggle in the one on the right-hand side. I've found that it's actually more applicable to really go with the SlimPact model. And I've found that the more and more, that's very good. Julie's just said that she speaks Japanese. Okay, so it is Ikigai. Okay, I'm going to go with Julie here. So when it comes to SlimPact, you can see that what we've done here is it's strengths, love, importance, money, and we'll go through this as well as with purpose. And in essence, when you find your SlimPact, it supports you to make an impact when you work from your enriched spot, making a pact with yourself to work from your enriched spot and to act with purpose and enrichment in whatever you do in your career. And what I want to be able to actually do here is explain what your enriched spot is as we go through each and every one of the parts to do with the SlimPact model. So we're going to go through strengths, then love, then importance, then money, and then purpose. And you can see here that what I've done is I've made a point of those three dot points about impact, pact, and acting, which is when you can work from something where you're that you're really happy with. That's your career enriched spot, the intersection of your S, your L, the I, and the M in this model. Then we'll show you diagrammatically that later on, then it's going to be very uplifting for you, and you'll have the benefits of those three bullet points. So in terms of strengths, if we think about really well-regarded companies like Gallup and a guy called Marcus Buckingham have become famous about talking to the point about playing to your strengths rather than working up and training out your weaknesses. And in terms of this, I'm drawing on the expertise of Gallup, but also in terms of just knowing that the world today means that employers, and even if you went into your own business, but basically you can work in your strengths area, which is something that you clearly are good at, and you can leverage out your weaknesses. And what I mean by that is you can buy those in. If you're a manager and you have other people who can support you in other areas, you're going to be able to have other people in other parts of the business that can really help you in areas that you're not strong in. So the point is to work more naturally in your strengths areas. And so what are strengths? And I've got here about accomplishments, skills, and competencies. And just your skills, your strengths are what you're good at. And these are your skills, like functional, formal, and personality skills and accomplishments. And they may encompass what you're naturally good at, but also what you've worked hard to achieve over time. In other words, they are your competencies, which according to self-determination theory are one of the three things vital to a fulfilling career. So I want to repeat that. It's your functional, formal, and personality skills. They're important to having a fulfilling career when you work from your strengths. So a career that can harness your strengths not only ensures that you achieve higher levels of performance, but it also builds confidence and leads to higher levels of job satisfaction as you flourish in your roles. So that's the S part of SlimPact. And then let's transition to what you love, which encompasses those things that enrich your life innately. And it's an important word, innately. They're often your interests or the things that capture your attention so much that you get lost in them And so one of the questions I often ask people I'm coaching with is, well, where do you get lost? Where does time just disappear? I know, for example, with my wife of almost 32 years, I can see that she just gets lost in anything crafty. Whenever she's using her hands to create things, she's actually in the floral business. She just loses herself. Time just goes. I can see it when she cooks, when she just makes anything for as long as I've known her. So lucky girl that she knows that that time goes when she's just involved with doing those things. And we all have those types of things. I know that whenever I'm writing books, for example, or articles, etc., but particularly in my books, that what I did was I just found that time just disappeared. So what is it that you love? And what you love is an easy piece of the career puzzle to figure out. This component encompasses all things that seem to enrich your life, as I said, innately. These are the things you're drawn to, where you seem to lose time because you enjoy what you're doing so completely. And they're also your interests. So a career that encompasses what you love keeps you committed and engaged with what you do, and is therefore an essential component of a successful career. So that's what you love. I'm giving a top line of this. Okay, so what's important to you? Now, these are the things that you stand for, that you're motivated by, and it's also the workplace culture that you're drawn to and the types of people with whom you like to work. And in your modules, you'll see that we talk about core values. That's about the whole things that you stand for. And then also the types of people with whom you like to work, and we call that your social core. So one of my favorite cartoons is Larson with God creating the world, and he's got a like a salt and pepper shaker thing. So an ingredient, spicing up the world. He's actually in the label on it says jerks, and I absolutely love that cartoon. You may have seen it. And I can ask for us to put this in our show notes, but it's just a hilarious Larson cartoon. And why I mention this, and if you've coached with me, you'll know that I brought this up, and that is that we all have people that we loved to work with, and there's some real jerks. That's what I'm addressing here. So let me just make sure that I'm really diving a little bit more deeply into this. And so what's important to you represents what you stand for and the culture you're drawn to. It's crucial that you're clear about what you do and don't stand for in terms of the values that you hold, the values that an organization holds, and what motivates you and the traits of the people that you best fit with. So when you're clear on all of these, so that's your values, the values of an organization, what motivates you and the traits of the people you work with, then you can be much more discerning about the type of work that you want to do and the workplace culture that you want to be part of. In other words, you'll be able to be equipped to identify a workplace that you fit with because it employs people with the personality traits that you get along with, and also it shares the values that have meaning to you. And when you feel as though you fit in the workplace culture, you'll have a sense of affinity with your employer and team members, fostering that all-important sense of relatedness, again, that I'm going to talk about with, that I talk about, say, in the modules with self-determination theory, that says it's important to an enriched career. And that's the second part of self-determination theory. They've got 3 parts, and it's the second part. So let me just punctuate this by, so what are your values? And Edward de Bono, who you've probably heard of, has written a number of books like Six Hats Thinking and the like. And he's also written a book about values. And so is Stephen Covey. And he talked about the importance of values. And so in order for you to be able to work out what those values are, I'd encourage you to go to your modules. We refer you to a nice nice list from a guy called Steve Pavlina. There are over 400 values, and what you can do is you can go in there and start to circle a lot of the values that you relate to. But ideally, what I'd like you to get down to is probably about 5 to 7 that are really integral to you. Today, I did a podcast with somebody, and her number one value is freedom. And so anything that can restrict her is not going to work for her, but anything that upholds her value of freedom does. No surprise that she's out of a job, but into her own successful business. And then if you actually, so when you're going for a job, let's just say you're going for a career with another organization, when you understand your own values, and when you actually understand the values of the organization that you're dealing with, and you can see that there's a strong overlap of your values and their values, namely their values help to underpin workplace culture, then that's when things are going to actually work out for you real well. And then, of course, the types of people, the jerks that I talked about, forget them, but the types of people who you really enjoyed being with over your working career or otherwise, they're the clues for the types of people that you'd have. So that's an important thing. And then what we have here is the important M. So you can see here we've got the I, the L, and the S, and so I've made that actually into slim. So here we are, slim. And so it's important when we actually think about the strengths that you've got, the L and the I, those things that you love and the things that are of importance to you, then what can you get paid for? And that refers to the need, as I got on this slide, for finding a financially viable career specific to your own situation. And what you get paid for is not just about finding the highest paying job. While not having enough of it can breed dissatisfaction, the amount that you're paid doesn't determine whether or not you'll find the career fulfilling. Instead, the money component refers to finding a financially viable career. After all, the one reason we work is to support our lifestyles, our families, and so on and so forth. So you need to choose a job that will be able to provide for those things. So for an enriched career, you need all four of S, L, I, and M to to find that you have an enriched career. And that's actually what's diagrammatically depicted here. And so using Venn diagrams from primary school and early high school, if we revisit that, you can see that if we take a Venn diagram with the S, the strengths, the L that you love and the overlap there, the I, what's of importance, then if we apply those three things, then the M comes in. And look, I think that that's actually extremely helpful, rather than the ikigai, or as Julie would say, ikigai. Then I would suggest to you that finding that intersection for a career, an enriched career, is significant enough just to look at the S, the L, the I, and then who's going to pay you to have that intersection of the S, L, and I. Now, I've coached many people, and those that go and take the time to work through the SlimPact model and come up with a short list of a few things that might really be helpful for them to test the waters with. And they may come down to, say, 2 or 3 ideas. But what I find is that this is pretty much the most efficient way of finding an enriched career. So for many people, finding the intersection of their strengths plus love plus importance plus money, or let's call it slim, in a job is enough to enrich their lives. They go on to enjoy a fulfilling career that satisfies them in a way that they never believed possible. Others, however, may like to go deeper and also ensure their potential career includes a sense of purpose to achieve what I then call a super enriched career. So let me just explain to you one example. And look, there are hundreds, and I don't want to sound like a broken record in case you've heard this one before, but this is a story of a guy who was broken. And when he came into my office, he's actually the most significant aha moment that I've had out of any of my coaching clients. And that's why I hearken back to this particular guy. But he was fired out of a financial services organization where he'd actually been involved with compliance and within a financial services organization. And I asked him, look, do you have any idea what you'd like to do? And he actually said, same bleep, different day. So the same bleep, different day. And I just thought, as a responsible career coach, I just said I couldn't leave him doing the same bleep, different day type scenario. So in terms of our discussions as things unfolded, it was very clear that his S was in administration / compliance, but he really liked a sense of order. But his L certainly wasn't financial services, although that's what his limited perspective was and what he might want to do. And the more and more I probed him in a relaxed way when we actually had our first session, was that he had an L, a love for cricket. And based on that, I actually posed him a hypothetical saying, what would actually happen if you hopped into the sport of cricket in admin? And his whole physiology, from feeling defeated, he just got some significant hope in his mind. And so just looking at the S and the L, he left my coaching session with him. And 3 weeks later, when I was supposed to catch up with him, he had cancelled his subsequent meeting. And I thought, as a coach, something had gone wrong. But I was pleasantly surprised when he told me, Greg, I landed a job in the cricket industry in admin. And I know that he's still there. So he's absolutely loving it. Now, the only thing that he missed out on was the I, but I would imagine that he landed into a place that he's now particularly happy with, around people that have got similar values of, the love of cricket and so on and so forth. So in any case, it just shows you that was a lovely example of somebody who did that. I've got another example of somebody who was an occupational therapist who did qualifications in occupational therapy and loved, however, the idea of making an impact on the planet. So working within a social impact sector. And she liked the idea of interacting with people as well as project management. So her S's were people and project management, and her L was around doing something that's going to clean up the world, making a social impact. She also had a very clear idea in her mind about an I, what was important to her, and she came up with her 5 to 7 values and also defined what her social core was, the types of people she wants to be around. And so she was very wizened to what she wanted and the types of culture and the types of people she wanted to be around. And she's now moved from one city where she grew up to another, where she's absolutely just blitzing her job in the social impact sector. But had she stayed within her chosen field of OT, she'd be very, very unhappy. So let's just move on here. And so I've just talked about your enriched career. And you may have actually seen me with this book, and I'll show it to you here at the bottom. You can see that book there called So Your Career Confused, WTF is Next. What I've done here is I've actually rewritten this, the content in that book, and a lot of that content appears in the modules, but I've worked it in a post-COVID environment. Still, 95% of it's the same book, but I've renamed it called Career Clarity. And if you're interested to find out more and to get a copy of it, you'll see a link later on in today's presentation. Okay, let me just get to purpose, because this is important. And we're going to get to this because, as you can see here, we've still got the SLIM, but we've also got the additional P here, which in terms of the intersection of these things, it means then we've got what I call, is that grade intersection is called the super enriched career itself. So let me just go back to this here, and that is your purpose. And for many, the strength, love, importance, money components are enough to find a satisfying career. In fact, guys, I'd say probably about 1 or 2% of people that I've ever coached, and literally it's over 1,000 people, have ever bothered the idea of having a purpose. But one of my favorite authors, as you know, is Stephen Covey, and he talks about having a vision for the end in mind. Start with the end in mind is one of his 7 habits of highly effective people. And I guess it's sort of like a vision or a purpose. Steve Jobs had a purpose to make a dent in the world. A number of people have as well, some really big thinking people like, say, Elon Musk as well. But, for others, the second paragraph in that bullet point sections there is, but for others, when purpose is present, it leads to what I've called a super enriched career. So it's not important for you to actually feel career enriched, but it's just this supercharged thing. So let's just dive in a little bit more around purpose. And the idea is that for many people, finding the intersection of their strengths, love, importance, and money, their SLIM, in a job is enough to enrich their lives. And they go on to enjoy a fulfilling career that satisfies them in a way that they never believed possible. But as I've just said, others like to get to a purpose. And so it's optional. I really want to stress this. A lot of people actually fret that what's my purpose in life? And I'll put hand on heart and say, I've often thought about that myself. But there's some thinking lately by a guy like Cal Newport in the United States. I think he teaches at Yale, and I referred to him in the book as well. And he says that over time, by just working in something, you become really passionate about something. It becomes a purpose as a result of working in it, rather than setting up immediately a purpose and having the rest of your life sort of follow through. And I tend to, frankly, agree with Cal Newport on this stuff. So you get a super enriched career when you do actually find out your purpose, and it allows you to really hone in on the way in which you can make an impact, thereby living with your purpose. So if you're purpose driven and you desire to create an impact bigger than yourself, it's going to help you. And your why or your purpose does not merely come from your head. It's not a cerebral thing. It's got to come from your mind, your body, and your inner core. And you may have actually heard of a guy called Simon Sinek, Sanek. And if you've seen the modules, I refer to Simon Sinek because his TED Talk has been seen by in excess of 20 million people on the planet. And he actually thought pretty nicely about, he's actually come up with a really good book called Start With Why. But he related that only when he learned to articulate why he did what he did, namely purpose, did his life start to turn around. And he stopped talking about what he did and only started to talk about what he believed in. And that actually then collected his tribe that, say, a guy like Seth Godin would talk about. If you've ever heard the term tribe, Seth Godin made that much more popular and much more in the vernacular of the post-internet and social media type stuff. but it's all about finding similar people about who believes in what you believe in. So coming back to Simon Sinek, he said that people who believed what he believed in wanted to learn more, and he was magnetic. And just to give you an example about a P or a purpose that I workshopped with somebody a while ago was a real heartfelt one with somebody from the Indigenous community. And listen to this one. Let me read this out. In the space of 1 year, I attended 70, it's 70. I attended 70 funerals of people and community members, most of whom were aged between 37 and 52, in remote parts of my home state. I was so overcome by the injustice and the inequality of services and support to people in remote areas that I quit my successful career as a plumber and made a commitment that people in remote areas would never, ever endure such suffering again. So no surprise to anybody is that that he changed from a plumber to working in the health system. And so in terms of this particular guy, he won't work for any in any other area other than in terms of public health and specifically around Indigenous health. So as far as that's concerned, it's a really I thought it's a beautiful example of purpose. And in terms of that, again, I just want to emphasize you don't need to get to purpose. The most important thing, but if you did, it gets you that super enriched intersection there, and that'll really be your true north, as Stephen Covey talks about. But otherwise, your career enriched spot is more than enough. So in terms of this, again, just saying that you can learn more about it from the relaunched book. And again, it was originally that book. You can still get that book, and if you want it, just let me know. You can register for that. But alternatively, register for this other Career Clarity book, which I've got here on screen. So this is actually the way it's going to look, and we're going to actually have exercises in a separate workbook for you to be able to work through. But you're privileged because as participants going through Career 365, you've got the majority of the content from this book and from all the thinking and the experience in dealing with hundreds and thousands of people being coached, how you could work through your own Slimpact. So what are the next steps? I'm going to encourage everybody to get into the modules, and you'll see the one where it talks about behind, your unique modules access. You've got different bundles, and you'll see the one talking about deciding your career direction or Slimpact. Get into that one and work your way through. Now, this is a simple model, but it's not easy. And I want to be able to really emphasize that, but it's worth it because it's your life. The important thing is to think that why rush things? One of my favorite sayings is measure twice, cut once. I learned that from a tradie doing carpet measuring in a place that I lived in many years ago. And that statement has stayed with me for a long time since. If only I'd listened to his advice more often, truth be known. But what I'm saying to you is that it's your life, and so therefore the modules are a really important thing for you. The other option is get into the LinkedIn community, ask people questions. Hey, I'm here and other people are available to book in a coaching session, so you can do that. And if you are interested in the book, just go to inquiries@career365.com.au. Okay, so what have we covered off? And that is that if you are at a point where you're able to get to having a career, a really enriched career, work on your Slimpact, your S, your L, your I, who's going to pay you for that intersection. If you have to, if you feel like you can, then get to the purpose side of things, because that will supercharge things. It'll super enrich you. And look at the differences that people with purpose do make on the planet. But you can be very, very fulfilled without a purpose. As Cal Newport said, you'll find your purpose over time by getting masterful at your craft, at the job that you're in. It may be that that's just something that you're meant to be, and you'll find that out yourself. So let's open up for questions and see if there's anybody who wants to get some clarity on some things. I've certainly learned from Julie about how to pronounce ikigai as ikigai. Important that one is. So just waiting on some questions, because we do have a lag between me posing this question and it coming up. Okay. So one of the questions is around values and how to actually come up with those. Okay. It's actually, let me help you also with one thing, and that is that you may also recall from the modules that we use a mnemonic called SAO. So let me just 1 second. I'm just going to actually kill off the slides so I can talk to you guys here. Okay, so I like the idea of a mnemonic called SAO, and SAO in itself stands for situation, action, and outcome. Now, let's just say, for example, your value is freedom, as I mentioned from that podcast interview a little earlier today. And that is what I'd like you to do is to take out of that list of Steve Pavlina's values. And you might, and if you're anything like me, I start off with, out of 400 odd, I started off with, say, 50, because I identified with all of that. And through iteration and iteration, we get down to a point where there's probably about, I think the lucky number is 5, but say 5 to 7. Okay, the human mind can recall a telephone number at best, 10 digits at a time. It's easier if you can remember, say, 5 values, 5 to 7 maximum. And then what do you do with that? So in terms of freedom, as a value, for example, what do you do? Well, S would be, okay, what's the situation that I could describe what freedom means? What's the action and what's the outcome of that? Or another model is what's the behaviors around the word freedom? I feel free when, and that's the behaviors that, or the context that you find yourself in. So that's an important distinction here. And that actually will help you when you're interviewing with other organizations to understand what their values are, because maybe their values are in words similar, but it may actually mean very, very different things. Okay. So how can you really identify what your strengths are? Okay. I think that these are, that's a good question. And in the book, okay, we actually take people through a number of exercises. And again, in terms of the exercises for strengths, what we have here is that chapter there called Competencies as Clues to Your Career. And you'll find that very similar in the modules. And in terms of that, there are different types of strengths, and we also talk about your accomplishments. Okay, so in here you'll see we talk about accomplishments, and in your modules you'll have the same thing. And how you uncover these accomplishments is just thinking about things or events that really were significant to you. So again, I want to use the mnemonic of SAO, which is situation, action, and outcome. And if you looked at a whole list of accomplishments, you can actually have a look at work or personal or educational, volunteer or community ones. and then make a list and then think through those. But then what I want you to do is to ask these questions, and let me read those out to you. Again, they're in the modules, but what are your personal interests and hobbies? What went well for you? Do you have any certificates or other physical evidence of your accomplishments? What are each of your roles that you've held, and what did you find the most satisfying about each one? Ask colleagues or those that you've done community-based activities with to see if they come up with a different set of achievements or accomplishments that you've had. Ask your friends and family what stood out to most to them that you've seen most pleased by. Are these stories you often tell that you are most proud of? Look over your social feeds and Facebook timeline for any clues. If you've kept journals or diaries in the past, what gold nuggets of achievements do they contain? And look back through the past photos, and you might be surprised at what you find. Evidence of a successful fundraiser that you contributed to your time to, or gaining a black belt in Taekwondo, and so on and so forth. And so if you want to start to keep better track of your accomplishments going forward, it pays. People talk about journaling. I personally don't journal. I've been saying for years that I should. I just don't get around to it. Also come up with maybe a dedicated spreadsheet. But the important thing is that for you to be able to actually have a look at those. And then we talk about the skills. What are the skills that you've acquired? And these would be hard skills versus soft skills. So what would those be like? So hard skills being those that you're tangible and easily verifiable, versus soft skills might be, for example, like people skills and other things along those lines. Then there are these other lists of skills which are functional, formal, and personality skills. And you can see here in the book, we talk about functional skills like writing, numeracy, record keeping, research and prioritization. Formal skills like, can you do a tax return? Can you handle checkout software for a major supermarket? Do you know how to conduct a drone survey of a road, and so on and so forth? And then there's personality skills. And within here, again, we've got lists of personality traits that you've got. And the whole idea is that what we do is we actually get you to have a long list of these things, and then to shorten these things out to a core list of things that really are things that you absolutely know that these are the things that come naturally to you. So that's a long answer to a short question about how can you really identify what your strengths are. Another question is, do you have any thoughts on multi-passionate people? What if you really struggle to hone in on one specific interest or strength? It's an extremely good question, that one. And in this book, again, what we do is we talk about testing some things out. So an example of that is somebody I coached would be almost a year ago. And we went through Slimpact, and she determined that there were 3 things that she was particularly interested in exploring for her next career move, each of which would enrich her. And so in terms of coaching with each other, or her coaching session, what I did was we ranked them, and we said, well, why don't we try out the first one and see if you can get that up. And so it actually turned out there were some obstacles. It's pre-COVID, but there was obstacles to really getting her first career-enriched spot really happening. So she went for the second one, and has found that one has actually been one that is much more successful. So within here, we actually talk through. There's a thing here saying test the waters. Okay, now a lot of people just jump in literally boots and all. Hence, jumping in, the expression jumping in boots and all, and that's like, and there's some advantages for that, but. I personally made the mistake when I started up this business. For the first year, it was the wrong business model, and I didn't have a side gig, for example, or I didn't have a safety net for myself. And so it was actually a very lean first year. And so the idea is just to be able to really test the waters, and we give a roadmap how to do that. And you could actually, for example, seek mentorship. So this diagram here talks about these things. So let me just give you the points, but it's all about seeking mentorship or checking your assumptions, or have prototypes, have conversations with people who really count, immerse yourself in the industry just to see as a test. Interning, for example, or otherwise, you might say, hey, can I try this out? Can I actually hang around you for the next week or two just to see what it's like, what your average day is like? Some people are quite open to that. And so there's a guy called Clayton Christensen that I quote within the book. How will you measure your life? And he talks about checking your assumptions. Again, that is in the modules, and I'd encourage that what you do is you actually have a look at that. So that's a very good question, and I hope that actually answered that. But basically, the whole idea is to be able to test your assumptions before going boots and all, and don't do the mistake I did, which was get in there, set up a business that was supposed to do one thing, but it was a very lean first year. Okay, test the waters. Have a look in the modules to be able to work out what it is that how you could test the waters, how you could work out about coming up to something that may be to that question about having more than one interest or strength. It's not uncommon to actually come up with a short list of 2, 3, 4 ideas. Test them and work out which one works well. Okay. Any other questions before we might wrap? I know that, I hope you can see I'm very passionate about it. I think that in terms of the Ikigai model, it's wonderful. It's just really difficult to apply. It's a very, very deep and meaningful one. You may have heard me talking about kokorozashi. Kokorozashi is a Japanese term where it's about the how do they define it? It's about going into the world with your something special. That's what kokorozashi is, and I've often looked at, okay, what is your and advise people about, come up with what the Japanese say your kokorozashi, or what is your something special? What is your innate God-given strengths, stuff that comes really naturally to you? And that's a really good clue also to what you might like to be able to actually do. All right, well, I've enjoyed today. I hope you have too. This will go up onto our social media, onto YouTube, and we'll probably transcribe some of this stuff into an article or two. If you have any questions, please just come back to me through the LinkedIn participant community, or directly to me through inquiries at career365.com.au. In the meantime, I wish you well. Have a career, finding out what your Slimpact is, what your enriched career spot is, what your super enriched career spot is. But remember, I and my colleagues are here to be able to help you out. Until then.